we are going to work on our covers. For the covers, you're going to need 2 5x6 pieces of chipboard. You're going to need several pieces of pattern paper. I am using the black butterfly for the cover. I'm going to use this music print for the inside cover. This doily and ticket pattern is going to be used for the inside back cover, and this typewriter pattern is for the very back. You're also going to need a piece of yellow cardstock, and it's going to need to be trimmed to 2 inches by 6 inches. You're also going to need the envelope that's part of the kit. In addition, some tools you're going to want to have, of course, are scissors, craft knife, a bone folder would be nice, and the 1/4 inch double-sided adhesive, which you could very well have if you bought this kit. Then I'll need the paper trimmer to trim up my yellow cardstock. To start, we're going to adhere the front and back paper to the front and back, of course, of the chipboard. You want to be mindful of your patterns on every time that you are adding any paper, especially to a chipboard, or anytime you're adding paper to your inserts. Just make sure your patterns are in the direction that you want them to be. I like to make notes on my chipboard. So this is front outside. So FO for front outside. I'm going to put an arrow there so I know which side is up. This is FI for front inside. Again, arrow up, and that way my arrows are both facing the right way and my patterns are going to end up the right way. Then I'm going to do back inside, arrow up, back outside. This is just optional. It's just one way I like to make sure everything is going on in the direction that it needs to go on. So now I have my front outside here. I've decided for my cover, as I have here on my sample, that I want the washi tape to be down here in the bottom right corner. The easiest way that I have found to add paper to chipboard is to use a double-sided adhesive on the chipboard itself. Chipboard's already sized down, and you can go ahead and size down the pattern paper, but again, I find it easier and more accurate if I then size the paper to the chipboard once I've adhered it. And then I'm a fan of the 1/4 inch double-sided adhesive because it's so strong, and it just helps to make sure the paper stays exactly where I want it for the long term. So that's a personal preference, but I do think there's merit to how strong this particular tape is. So I'm going to pull that up. Then what we'll do next, and I'm keeping the pace of this video fairly slow in case indeed you do want to work along with me. So, and we're going to repeat this every time, so just wanted to make sure you saw how this works. So you saw I have the washi here in this corner, so I'm going to take my chipboard, line up my edges just as best as possible. Then this is where the craft knife comes in, just very gently. It helps to have a sharp knife, but then you want to just be super gentle and careful with your sharp knife, right? And then just trim away right along the edges. If you want to use a ruler to help guide, you can do that, of course. Pass through a couple times. Don't be in a hurry on this part. Make sure that your cuts are nice. And then sometimes I get a little miss on the corner and I just got to go back and hit the corner. So that's done. And as another option as well, grab some sandpaper, some paper sandpaper, distress the edges, smooth the edges out. This is a personal preference. A lot of people don't prefer this. I just like to make my paper smooth with the chipboard. So that's what's going on there. Okay, at this point, we're going to go ahead and cover the back outside. You're going to see in a moment why this is extra important to me to have these marked. Same thing. This is just a do and repeat situation here where we're going in with our 1/4 inch tape, or you can use 1/8 inch tape. It's not a preference for the side. There's even like I believe I have a 5/8 inch that I use quite a bit. That's a lot of adhesive. I don't think it needs or requires that much. So 1/4 inch is... So 1/4 inch is a good width for me. Pull off backer paper, do the same thing. Now on the typewriter pattern, For me, there wasn't much preference as to where I needed the pattern to be. It appears all the same to me. So just going to do and repeat what we did with the front outside cover. And trim that up again. I always try, oops, see, now that might be a reason why you could use a ruler. So in this instance, we'll just go ahead and grab one, just line the ruler up with the edge of the chipboard paper. I'm still hitting the chipboard a little bit there. Must have been cut a little irregularly. And we'll do the same thing here, just line up the knife with the chipboard and the ruler. Make a couple passes. All right. Same thing if you want to take sandpaper to it, now is a great time to do that. Okay, at this point, our outside covers are covered. Our inside covers are not covered yet, and don't cover them quite yet at this point. Grab the yellow cardstock if it's not trimmed out already. Trim a 2-inch piece off the bottom of that, because upon doing that, you're going to have it 2 inches wide, 6 inches tall, which is the height of the chipboard. With that ready to go, I'm just going to come in here with the adhesive again, and I'm going to come right up against the inside edge. Now, isn't it nice now to have front inside, back inside, and our arrows up? We know exactly how this is going to play out now, and we don't have to keep flipping. It's just already done for us. Sometimes doing something at another point in time saves you time and sometimes stress at another point in time. And that's what I think happens when we mark the chipboard. And I kind of shorted myself, so I'm going to trim that off there. Take off the backer to that adhesive. I got 2 pieces here, so let me get both those pieces. Sometimes it helps to use a little tool to pull that up. Okay. Now at this point, what I want to do is I want to have 3/4 inches in between these two. I'm going to pull this up here a little bit. Okay. I want 3/4 inches between these 2 pieces of chipboard. That's about the width of the binding that I want. So if you think you want more, go for a full inch. If you think you want less, I wouldn't go less, but you could definitely go more. And it's not going to affect the book. And again, using this as a format for any other kind of book you want to use, this is a great way to bind. So you're going to line up, you're going to get this just as centered as much as possible, lining up the top covers and the bottom covers. And I can tell already that I'm going to need to come back in here and trim some of the bottom. That's fine by me, but basically that's your binding. And so before we go on to then covering our outside, we have a little extra thing to do with that as well. I'm going to go ahead and trim off my extra little sliver of the binding piece. Okay, at this point, we're going to go ahead and cover the front inside. The paper that I've chosen for mine is this music pattern, which is beautiful, but it has all this detail work up here in the top left-hand side. I want that to be part of my cover. So I am going to go ahead and take off that little extra hang piece. Now, it's a little extra tricky this way because you see how that is? Because we have already finished our binding here. So what you can do at this point is mark where you're going to need that and then trim it off. And then this is 6 inches tall, of course. You can go ahead and mark that as you would like. And trim those pieces out. So trim that. I could have showed you. I'm trimming that to 6 inches. This will be basically trimmed to 5 inches. But I liked having my little mark. Sometimes, you know, the chipboard's not perfectly trimmed. And you can always go back and trim your edges. Okay, so I do not want to confuse you there, but I just wanted you to know that, you know, you have this binding in here already, so you might want to go ahead and pre-cut this paper. Okay, front inside, adding the adhesive as we have so faithfully done so far. what might also be helpful to you is when we get to this little inside part of our binding, what's great about having a mat that has inches on it. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know I don't want to go past here. So I'm just going to add that adhesive right in here because I don't want to go into the binding. And then just need one more piece here on the outside. Take off our backer paper. Remembering where you want your pattern, so I'm going to line it up here in the top left corner. I'm sorry, that's the top left corner. Make sure my edges are covered on top here. And I can tell I've gone a little long, which is fine. We have left our back inside. What we want to do here on our back inside is grab the envelope, and we are going to be making a page flap with the envelope, and it's going to open up like this, like a book. I'm going to add adhesive to what is basically the outside flap of the envelope itself. And as close to the edge as possible. And then just one more little segment here on its triangle. Whoops. Sorry if you could not see that. Here we go. That's better. All right. We're going to be repeating this process over and over again, because if a mini album is anything, it's a whole lot of connector pieces, right? Because we're making an album from scratch. We're making the bones of an album so that we can just add all kinds of lovely things inside. Now I'm taking the sticky side down the edge of the envelope, right with the edge of the chipboard, the back inside chipboard cover. I'm centering it as best as I can. It's not totally going to matter. Don't worry about this chipboard showing yet, because now you have your flap, right? Keep your flap open. You're going to need to go back in and trim this down to 5 by 6 again. And again, make a decision. Do you want your doily on the top? Do you want this little part of the doily on the bottom? Mine's going to be on the bottom. So I'm going to come right in here and trim this to 6 inches right here. If you have the kit, you already have this trimmed down. And I want this part to be the 5 inches, so I'm putting that on the 5-inch side. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing, right? Adding adhesive to all my edges. Going over the flap of the envelope. That's going to be covered up. And all you're going to have left is this flap. This is a great technique to use in so many different ways. In so many different flip books or mini albums. It's even a great idea on a scrapbook page. In a planner. It's a fun little easy technique. Okay. Now again, lining this up as best as possible. My doily is at the bottom right corner. And make sure all my edges at the top are even. And then again, I'll need to come down here and trim. And you might not need to trim. I kind of would rather have to trim than have not covered it well enough. So I'm okay with when I pre-trim my papers that they might be, you know, about 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch too small. I'll just trim it off. The beauty of paper. And that is how we have covered our inside and the outside of the album, and now we're going to work on the inserts. Segment, we are going to be crafting the inserts to this album. There are 2 inserts in the Beautiful Things mini album. This first insert here is played on the back-to-back idea, where you have 2 pieces of paper that are adhered back to back. There are different size pages. There are different size elements within these pages, and that is insert number 1. Then insert number 2 plays off of the envelope flap in the back of the album, and it also includes a pocket, a full page layout, and a covered vellum pocket. So we're going to get to that now. For insert number 1, the papers you're going to need from the kit include the pink botanic paper, this multi-dotted paper, the solid pink cardstock, the printed vellum. I'm calling this one the orange floral on, I'm calling it the orange floral, but sometimes it'll be referred to as the orange floral on pink. Then this red orange cardstock, and then this Bloom's yellow floral color. We'll be using those to make our insert, our first initial insert. You're going to need things again like the scissors, craft knife. You're going to need a hole punch. Up to 2 inches is good. Anything more than that might be a little big, but 1, 2, 1.5, 1 3/4 inches is great. Of course, we're going to need our double-sided adhesive. I'm also going to be making use of this trimmer. I have 2 caveats I want to share with you before we get started here. First, just to make sure you know, all measurements are in inches. Second, all scores are going to be measured from the left side of the paper. So for example, if I'm calling for a 5-inch score, I'm going to be lining my paper up here to the 5-inch measure, and I'm going this way with my score. So this is the 5-inch score. You can use a scoreboard, that's fine. Just be mindful, there's different orientations on scoreboards. I just want to make sure you know that I am measuring from my left side in for my score. If you already have this kit, your pages and papers are already trimmed and scored. But here's an opportunity if you don't have the kit that you can still make this album with any paper collection whatsoever. So I provided all the measurements for you here today. We're going to start with the pink botanic paper. We're going to trim this to 4.5 by 5.5. I'm going to trim at the 5.5 first, and then 4.5. And just being mindful that this one doesn't matter as much, but just be mindful that you want your pattern to be going along, up and down along the 5.5-inch measurement. So score along, this is your 4.5-inch measure, score along this measure at 1.5. So I'm going to measure here to 1.5. Go ahead and fold that over. And basically what you're looking at here is this part is the very first cover, the very first page, if you will. When we do begin to adhere this in the back-to-back binding fashion, this little 1.5-inch piece is going to stay loose until we have all our pages in place. So just set this one aside for a moment. The next paper we'll be trimming is the dotted paper. We're going to trim this 7 3/4 by 5.5. Now note, you've heard 5.5 twice now, because 5.5 is the height of the inserts. All these pages here in this part of our book, all will be 5.5 inches tall. So along the 7 3/4 side, we're going to score at 3 inches. 3 inches over. Go ahead and fold on your score. And then just make sure your creases are just as nice as they can be. When we're looking at this in the book, this is actually how we'll be looking at this. So you're going to be adhering this 3-inch white side with this 3-inch white side. Now what I'm going to share with you here, I'm going to make a super simple pocket. And what I mean by super simple pockets is that I'm just going to be using the adhesive to create the pocket portion of the page. So for this little pocket here, we just want to add adhesive on 3 sides. Remember, we're looking at our front page. It's opening like this, so we want our pocket to be right here. I'm going to come along on the edge. This is the inside edge of our book. This is the binding of our insert. I told you in our last segment how we were going to be doing this right here an awful lot. And we're doing it again. Just takes time, and I didn't want to speed through it. I want to walk through this with you as best as I can. Okay, so this is our cover. We're taking white page to white page. The best way to do this is line up your folds as best as you can. Mine's a little off. Let's see if we can do that again. This can be a little tricky. Just take your time on it. Again, if we have to trim up on our edges, that's fine. We trim up on our edges. Now, I know it looks a little confusing here, but this flips back behind. So we now have the very first part of our book insert. For the next page in our insert, we're going to need the solid pink paper. We're trimming this to 5 3/4. By 5 1/2. We're going to score along the 5 3/4 width at 4 3/4. So think of it in terms of, this is the height, the top and the bottom of your page. So for the most part, we're scoring perpendicular to that page. Now this large size fits your dotted size, and we're going to adhere those 2 pieces together. I'm going to give you the option at this point to pause the video and add these pages in on your own. We're doing the same thing that we've done from the very beginning. I'm adding the 1/4 inch double-sided adhesive, and I'm going to be adhering this to the back side of the dotted paper. The adhesive is added to the back of the pink. I'm going to again line up the folded edges as best as you possibly can, making them as even as you possibly can. Remembering we can always trim out papers if we need to. So this is what we have so far. This is our first page, our second page, and now we have this partial page, and we're going to fit the vellum in between this page and the next page. At this point, we're going to take our vellum piece and trim it 4 inches wide, 5 1/2 inches tall. This can be set aside for right now. Like I said earlier, it's going in between this paper and the next paper. So let's now trim out the next sheet of paper we need. We're going to take the orange floral and trim it 6 to 5 1/2. Now it doesn't matter which way this pattern goes, and this is already 6 inches wide, so I just need to come in here and trim it at its 5 1/2 inches for its height. Then along the 6 inch mark, I'm going to score it at 1 inch. At this point, we can now put these pages together. I am going to just add the adhesive along the inside edge of the solid paper. I'm going to go ahead and add the vellum inside there so it's over that adhesive. And then it needs another strip of adhesive on top of that to add the next page. Let's get that in line along there, and I'll show you why I opted for the adhesive to be along this edge right here. As we've done with our other pages, we're going to fold this over. This is what we'll be looking at in our book, but it's just that 1-inch edge that, or fold if you will, that now lines up with where our binding is here. So this is what it looks like at this point. You open up your page, you have this beautiful vellum playing nicely with this beautiful floral, and it's an in-between page. And while we're on this page, what I want to share with you, I would opt to distress these edges. I just think it's going to give it a little bit more play and a little bit more interest. And so I'm going to want to do the same thing here with this page as well. What's fun now that you have remember inside the adhesive is just along this fold. So you've got basically a little tuck in place. And I think that's a lot of fun if it's going to be a journal piece. It could be a photo. It could be any manner of things. But tuck-ins are a lot of fun. So that's what I wanted to create here with this page. So let's continue with finishing this insert. Now we're going to take this red-orange solid paper. We are going to trim the red solid to 5.5 by 5. I'm going to cut the 5 first. Turn it and trim it to 5.5. There's no folding or scoring happening here. This paper just literally gets added onto the very back. So the back of the orange floral has adhesive all around it, just like we've done many times before already. I'm sticking to my page here. And I'm just going to add the solid piece to the back of that page. Okay, so I've added solid to the back of that page. Now we're going to trim out our yellow floral, and this is going to be 5.25 by 5.5. So I'll do 5.5 first. This pattern, it doesn't quite matter which direction it goes in, so this is going to be the 5.25. Remember, we need the 5.5 to be the same height as the rest of the pages. This piece now, remember our little 1.5-inch flap from the front? This piece now wraps around. We're going to add adhesive to this flap on the white side of it. And then we're going to do what I call massaging the paper around to the back of the floral. And we're massaging it because at this point we have probably at least 1/4 inch of papers here. And I want to, while we're on that subject, at this point you could redo what we've just done. You could add more to this insert. You can go and add just more pocket type pages like we did here. You could add half pages like here. You could go on. You don't have to stop here. This is just where I'm stopping for this insert. And so taking off the adhesive, I'm then going to carefully, actually, you know what worked best was when I lined this up yellow floral pattern down, lined it up to the edge of the red cardstock, and then I pulled this around, and you're going to feel how it's going to have a bit of a round sort of fold here. So that's the massaging part. Just kind of let it fold over where it's going to fold over, because it's going to create its own space here for that about 1/4 inch or so of paper. And then this is the front of your insert. And it's nice that these pages lay pretty flat. Beautiful patterns. Okay, now that our book is completed, our first insert is completed, and it's an insert that can have many pages added to it, as I've already alluded to. You're going to grab the cover, and this sits in here like this. So you're going to want to add adhesive to the back of this. Now, if you just did 3 sides and left the top open, then you actually have an additional pocket if you would like. I'm going to go ahead and stay consistent with the original project that I made, and I am going to do all these sides here. All right, I'm going to take off backing. So I hope that I hope you feel inspired to take these ideas and take it a next step further. You know, my idea was just definitely to create a great album with plenty of space and some fun flips here and there. And even on our next insert that we make, same idea. You can add to it, you can take away to it. Just make sure this is in here even. And there you have your first insert. And when we add this insert in, this is going to flap over to that, and that, and that. All right, let's go on to insert 2. Okay, for insert 2, these are the papers you're going to need. You're going to need the brown, the solid brown cardstock. You're going to need what I affectionately call the bug paper. You're going to want to grab that green graph. You still have vellum left. And these 2 papers will be used as well at the very end. Okay, to start, we need to trim the brown paper 7 3/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm going to trim this first to 7 3/4. And the 7 3/4 gets turned, and I'm going to trim that to 5 1/2. Then I'm going to score at the 4 1/2 along the long edge. Come in right here at 4 1/2. Make a nice crease. Gentle, don't go through your paper. Fold that. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside momentarily. Then now onto the bug paper. Again, you're going to need to really watch your patterns for this particular paper. And I want to trim out a 4 by 6 piece of paper out of this. I need it to be 6 inches tall because I need the taller part of this to be an up and down pattern. Now, if you are using a different paper, and you don't have to worry about a pattern, it doesn't matter at that point. You just need a 4 by 6 piece of paper. To give you a little insight, this is going to become a pocket, and this is the opening. So I need a 1/4 inch here, a 1/4 inch here, and a 1/4 inch here of a score. And I will go ahead and tell you, I believe my measurements are a little wide on this. So all we'll have to do, if that indeed how it turns out, is just trim a bit off. And there's plenty of space to do that. And it will show itself pretty naturally. So go ahead and get those 1/4 inch. You got to make sure you have a good fold or score on these. Again, you want to score nicely without going through. But a 1/4 inch can sometimes be a little tricky to fold, so just be mindful of that as well as you are making those scores and then going back in and folding. I'm going to go ahead and trim my corners off here. And just kind of getting that started a little bit, and then it'll be ready for a nice crease. Crease that, crease this, and crease this. Okay, now set this aside. We're just kind of building our components at this point. The next paper we need is going to be what I call the green graph paper. It needs to be trimmed 8 to 5.5 inches. It's already 8 inches tall, but I will take off the little hang tag that's attached to the top of it. So that's already 8 inches, and then I need to score that, or I'm sorry, trim that at 5.5. And just as, again, I'm watching my pattern here. I have a little butterfly here, have a smallish butterfly there. So I'm going to take this off of the top. And this is going to be what you look at on the page. So just another reminder to watch your patterns. We're going to score along this 8 inch at 4.5. Go ahead, if you have the kit, then you already have this and it's already scored for you. You do need to go ahead and fold it. Now at this point, we're going to adhere the pocket to the back of the left side. So we're going to place this face down. And we're going to adhere the pocket to this back left side. Now this is a 1/4 inch wide. Remember our folds? So this, I'm using again the 1/4 inch adhesive. It's going to be a little tight, but I'm just going to make it work. At this point, if you want to use an adhesive glue, if you want to use a liquid glue, if you would prefer to use a 1/8 inch double-sided adhesive, then that works just as well also. But just know that I'm kind of just making this work here. And then once we get this into, or onto rather, its side of the paper, we are going to need to trim it just a tad. But this makes for a fun pocket, and as I am taking off the adhesive, and if you have some adhesive hanging over, just roll it back onto the paper itself. It's pretty forgiving like that, so you should be able to get that just fine. Before I do add it to the paper here, I'm going to grab my circle punch. I'm going to unlock my circle punch, and I'm going to go just grab a small bite out of that. Okay, now I want this to be able to fold, so it might be a good idea to go ahead and fold it so that you don't go over, because this pocket does need to be able to turn. It is a page. So it fits here really well on the height, but you're going to see here we have this much hangover. So can't have a hangover, so I'm going to come in here and trim it. What this basically means is that we could have either trim this thinner or folded it thinner. But bottom line is you have a beautiful pocket. And what you might need to do at this point too is just come in here and just make that bite just a little bit more. All right, I'm grabbing our vellum here, and it needs to be trimmed 4.5 wide by 5.5 inches tall. So I'm going to go 4.5. And then 5.5. This is how this will look inside of our book. And the top of it, So this is 5.5 this way, and just move your vellum however you want that pattern to show. At the top of it, a score of a 1/2 inch needs to be made. And again, with vellum, you have to be super gentle. It can be very easy, depending on the vellum, to crack it when you're folding vellum. So it's just a little persnickety, but we're gentle folks. We can make it happen. So now that we have our vellum scored, we're back to our graph paper. And we have a blank side that has nothing on it. On this blank side, we are going to add, or adhere, either way, the flap of the vellum. So adding adhesive to this top, you're going to fold it again, and this is going to be a flap on this side of the paper. You'll see how this plays out here in a moment. But you want to go ahead and get that at the top of your page. So now you have this vellum flap. On your vellum side of the paper, have the flap up, and you're not going to take that brown paper again. And with the smaller fold to the left, you're going to adhere this same size fold on the right side. You know the routine, right? I'm just going to go ahead and add our adhesive on and start putting that paper in place. I just folded that smaller fold inside while I was getting this formatted on the paper here. And then this comes over like this. And again, you might need to massage your vellum a little bit. You might need to massage any of these folds. When we're playing with paper, going over more than another singular piece of paper, we've not necessarily given, there's not a great way to give this a 1/16 inch fold. So don't think you've done something wrong if something isn't lining up right. Just go back in and massage, and if we need to maybe go back and trim this paper, we can when everything is all done and in place. At this point, if you have the kit, there is a pocket that has been made from this pattern paper. If you don't have a kit, I suggest making a pocket. I'm going to be making my pocket with this die, but if you're going to just make a pocket at home, I suggest making about a 3 3/4 wide pocket, and then about 3.5 inches tall. So I'm going to die cut my pocket at this time. I've added adhesive to my pocket folds, and I'm going to add this to the lower part of this brown background. And this is where the vellum then lays over that, and we'll add embellishment to that later on. In the meantime, I'm going to grab our book. You're going to see that this now fits inside of our flap. Again, a little bit of massaging can take place to get those folds nice and over their particular pages. And this is what you have now for your second insert. Plus you still have the pocket for additional items, photos, and then you also have this pocket here. You have a full page for a layout if you would like. Then you have either hidden journaling, hidden photos, you have this surface, and you still have this surface here. The last thing we're going to do is cover our envelope up, and we're going to completely eyeball this. And what I mean by that is I am just lining this up, so I have a little bit, very small amount of a mat behind the black and white paper. I come in here with my ruler. I'm just going to tear that off. I'm going to do the same thing here. Just tear off the bottom portion of this. Add adhesive, and then you have this surface as well, and it's covered. And if there is a desire to cover this surface, then by all means make that happen. And I'm going to grab the adhesive, and this is basically going to be the last thing that we do to craft our inserts. We have 2 inserts, And now for the embellishing. And I will see you in the next video. Okay, now we're ready to embellish our book. I like to use a clip. This book wants to kind of pull open while it's still getting used to its fold there. So a clip is a nice thing to keep that closed down with. We're going to start by adding in a embellishment here along the first book here. So I've just gone along here with my ruler. It's my fancy little distress tool because I like my edges to be pulled up. I think it just brings more interest. And so what is going to go in here is simply this piece of ephemera. I thought it made for a great journal spot. Now if I can get my pocket back open, this just can pop right in there and plays nicely there. Then in order of layering from top to bottom, I have this piece of ephemera, and then the yellow ticket strip, and then a notched piece of paper from our scrap, and it's just going to kind of layer in there like that. I have punched a piece of vellum from our leftover vellum, and it's going to layer right there on top, just like that. There's a label that's part of the kit, and it's going to kind of come in here like so. And then we have this leaf die cut. Actually, before the leaf die cut, I've missed, I'm going to notch this. So this piece of pattern paper is about 4 inches wide, 2 inches tall. I'm going to fold it over, but I'm not going to crease it. Okay, so you kind of got to hold that in place. Make sure all your edges are lined up. It just gives it a little bit more height and dimension to not have that completely folded and smashed down, for lack of a more technical term there. So just like that, pull your little notch out. And that's how you do all the notches, is you go up the middle just like you saw me do there. I'm going to fix this one because I kind of missed my edge a little bit. And then you go in from each of the corners. And then the leaf die cut comes right on top. So once I have these guys in place, how I like them, I love layers. I love the depth of interest that layers provide. I love doing this too. Here we're going to take our leaf die. You can use, if you are using your own kit, you can use any kind of floral, flower, leaf, cluster, anything. Then once you have all this layered like you like, just come in here with a stapler, and you have that all now together. Now all you have to do is add a strip here of adhesive, and actually I'm going to add it to the book itself. Doesn't need much. You can also use your favorite craft glue for that. You can use hot glue if you prefer as well. Sometimes that is my preferred way of embellishing and adding embellishments on, is with craft glue. Okay, now I'm going to, because I didn't line this up great, just going to come in here real carefully and just trim that out so it's not showing. I don't really want the white to show. I'm happy with that. Okay, so now that's in place. We've got our little journal card back behind. A couple more things we're going to be adding, and that is this chipboard. It's a rose gold heart chipboard. In the sticker book, there's a memory sticker here that I'm going to use to kind of title this first page. Now, one of the things I like to do with stickers, and I kind of do it obsessively. I do this quite often, and that is I put it on a piece of scrap cardstock or pattern paper and cut it so you can't see it behind, but now I can kind of lay it down wherever I want and it's not going to stick yet, right? I've just grabbed a little piece of foam tape, and that's going to provide even more dimension for us. I should actually lift that so that it's not upside down. Now, it's your choice whether you want to cover the staple or not. It really doesn't matter. And then either a little drop of craft glue or a little piece of the double-sided adhesive can pop right on here and kind of cross over the top of the sticker. And that is our first page of embellishment. To embellish the front inside cover, you will need the black folder from the ephemera and this peach and foil folder from the ephemera. I'm going to be tucking in this little butterfly tag. Need this peach script tag here, as well as your sticker book. So to start, add adhesive to 3 sides of the peach folder. Going to be creating a pocket on the inside cover here, just like this. Adhere it about 2/3 of the way down. Then this folder is going to come and sort of straddle the first one, and realize at this point you have a pocket here. This is what I call an easy pocket, because it just takes adhesive to get it into place. On the black pocket, I'm going to use some strips of double-sided adhesive foam so that it can be raised a bit. So same idea, adding the double-sided, the foam adhesive to 3 sides, leaving the top open, and this creates another pocket on the inside cover. And I'm going to pull it down so it shows about not quite a half of the peach folder above it. And then taking this peach tag, I'm reaching in here to the stickers. There's a sheet, there's several sheets actually, of the clear stickers. I'm grabbing this orange butterfly. I'm just going to kind of pop this one up here, sort of in this top right corner. You can either wrap the sticker around the edge or trim it. I like to keep the strips on the tops of the paper, and I'm just going to cut in here just this black dot strip off. Just going to tear it, and I'm going to use it instead of a tag hole. I'm just going to add like these little notched tag pulls and staple them with the mini stapler. And that's going to tuck into this top pocket as well. And then utilizing the sticker sheet again in the back is, well, maybe about halfway in, or maybe not. Here you go. I call these arrow tabs. I'm going to grab the pink one. I'm going to just pop this right here. Kind of a little crooked, not completely even. And then in the very back of the sticker book, you have these great word phrase stickers. I'm going to grab this Peach Beautiful, and it's going to kind of layer right over this, and the inside embellishment is done. Okay, we're going to prepare an embellishment flap for this small part of the dotted page. If you have the kit, you should have a piece of red cardstock, which we are going to trim to 2 3/4 wide. Then we're going to score along the 6-inch length at 1/2 inch. Fold that, make sure you have a good crease. On the other side of the flap, you're going to add your adhesive. Go ahead and notch a V at the bottom of this flap. Then adhere this to your left side of your dotted page. At this point, you just have a real simple flap in place. Next, you should have this orange floral, and it's going to be 2.5 inches wide by 5 inches long. So 2.5, which mine already is, and then 5 inches long. This could still make for a great little tab or notched something or other layer at another place. Again, V-notch the end. Sometimes it helps to turn it over. See, I didn't get that very much in the middle, but it helps to turn it over and see where your cuts are, especially if you have a busy pattern like this orange floral pattern is. And then add a piece of adhesive at the top of that. And then adhere this over the orange-red cardstock. Okay, to finish off the embellishment here, you're going to need a label, the So Lovely tag from the ephemera, one of the chipboard arrows, as well as the sticker book. If you feel led, go ahead and distress the edges of all your pieces. I'm going to add adhesive to the back of the tag and then layer it so that it's kind of hanging over this edge a little bit. This doesn't show on the back side because in the front of our page we have the journal spot that is tucked in here, so that tag doesn't actually show. If you'd like to add some trim to the tag hole, now would be a great time to do that. Otherwise, add adhesive to the back of it as well. And layer it right about so. Make sure these are even here. I think I got that a little crooked. I'm going to layer that there. Then I'm going to take my arrow and add adhesive to the back of it. And this is chipboard. Chipboard can be a little tricky to add adhesive to. I'm going to use the double-sided adhesive and add a spot there at the top of it and just trim away the excess. Fold that over and add a little piece here at the end as well. When you have all your adhesive in place, then just layer it as you desire over your tag, over the label. Then in the back of the sticker book are all your word phrases, and I'm going to adhere the hello just right in that little section there of the arrow. And now our dotted page is embellished. Okay, now we have turned to the pink page and the vellum page that's also over the orange page. And previously when we were creating the book, I went ahead and pulled the edges up. I have grabbed the What a Beautiful Place ephemera tag, and I'm just going to tuck it in. This made for a nice tuck-in space, and I have created from some of the scrap paper this other tag. It's about 2 3/4 by 4 inches tall, and it's going to tuck in back behind here, but this could be a photo. It doesn't have to be another tag, but it was just something to sort of mirror the back of this tag. Next, we're going to adhere the pink and foil butterfly circle ephemera right up here to this upper right hand corner. I also had in mind to sort of make this a bit of a tuck. So we're only going to use one piece of adhesive right at the top. It's just kind of as top as you can make it. That way it still has the idea of a bit of a tuck in, or you could lift it up and add a photo underneath it as well. And I'll have it down all the way. I just want to move it so it's overlapping these pages just a bit. The ephemera has this butterfly tab. I'm going to take it right here along the vellum and just staple that in place. There is also a scallop pink and foil ephemera circle. I'm going to grab my trimmer and use it as a scoreboard. I'm going to score this right in half, score that in half and fold it over. It doesn't matter that the scallops are lined up, because this is now going to come around this bottom left-hand corner of the floral page here and kind of act like a tab. So staple in place so it's going to be there as a tab. And so we have our vellum page, or vellum half page if you will, now embellished. All right, for the red cardstock page, there is still this black with white dot left over. So what you want to do is trim this to 1 inches wide, 5.5 inches tall, which I've already done here. No, actually I need to trim it down to 5.5. So 5 inches in what's essentially going to be the height of it. I'm going to create a belly band. So in order to do that, we need to add a bit of adhesive at the top, and then just another same amount of bit at the other end. And once you have that ready, then come along here and you're going to come in about 1 inch from the left-hand edge of the page, and you're going to put that in place. So now you have a space to tuck in. I have tucked in this bird tag, and then also should go over that tab there. There we go. I also grabbed this music tab. So those will make for great journal spots. And then I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of the Beautiful with the mushrooms. And then that's going to adhere right on top of the band. I'm going to kind of move it over here. So you just kind of got a cluster of some embellishments that are fun and beautiful. And that is how we're going to embellish our red page. If you desire, you could add some stamping in here as well. I'm putting in a mat so that my surface is solid. Okay, I have on my stamp block the sort of like the text stamp that is part of the kit, and I have kissed my scrap paper, and so I'm just going in here. Oh, that was a little bit too soft. Let's do that again. So I'm coming over here and stamping that down, then stamping it here just along the edge. It's pretty subtle, but you can see it there. I'm going to do the same thing up here at top, on the top as well. Stamp down and come over here. Just add a little bit of text at the top. I'm going to grab the postmark, add that in, and then the butterfly is going to come about right here and up here. So all you have to do if you don't pre-stamp your pages before they get to be part of the book, then just put a piece of chipboard, this is a cutting mat, something that will allow you to stamp solid on your page. Next, we're going to embellish under the vellum flap. I have the floral stamp from the stamp set. I am adding a brown ink to that, sort of kind of to play off of the cardstock that's holding our pocket in place. I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper and kind of cover up there, because I'm going to come in here on this left edge side and just add a little motif of this floral. That is fairly beautiful on its own, of course. You could leave it like that and maybe add some stickers around there. I'm going to continue on and layer with this large dragonfly and foil round piece of ephemera. So I'm grabbing some adhesive here, and I'm actually going to put my adhesive on the pocket because I don't need much at all. And then I can place this where I would like it to be. It can come, I wouldn't put it in the middle so much, but just kind of maybe in about 1/3 of the way. Then there is still this pattern paper left. I am going to grab a piece of it that is about 1.5 inches wide. I'm sort of kind of eyeballing it, just cutting it here with the ruler. I do tear a lot. I haven't torn a whole lot in today's teaching, but I do like to tear quite a bit and leave the edges kind of rough and the white showing. And then again with another V-notch, and see how it's kind of hard to see that pattern, so that's why I like to look at the bottom. I want to just make sure this is roughed up. I'm going to go ahead and pull those edges up with my ruler, my handy dandy little distress tool here, And then just adding a bit of adhesive to the very back edge of my little notched banner. Then I'm going to tuck it. And real quick here, a little tip. One of the great reasons for not adding a whole bunch of adhesive to the back of an element is that then if you do decide, well, I actually wanted to tuck something under there, you've got space to do that. So that was just a free little tip there. I'm reaching for the sticker book again, and I love, as you can tell, or maybe you can't, these foiled word stickers. And I'm just going to add this happy, just going to kind of figure out how it sort of fits in there, and that's how I'm going to embellish this pocket. Okay, open to the green graph paper. This is probably going to be the simplest embellishing we're going to do, but nothing's wrong with simple. Sometimes it's the most elegant. And I'm kind of doing a monochromatic theme here. So there is a gold clip in your kit. So clip that right up here on the top right corner, and then find the green striped tag, as well as the Beauty is Everywhere tag. Those are both from the ephemera, and tuck them up in there. You can add some fiber, string, thread, whatever you want to the top of those tags. I'm keeping them open because of them being under the clip. And then back to the sticker book, about the second page in, there's this cute little beetle. I know, I can't even believe I said cute little beetle, but I did. And I just thought it would look kind of cute here, because once you get it on this pattern paper, it just looks like it's either stamped on or it's part of the paper. And that's how we are going to embellish the green graph paper. Okay, when you open the envelope flap, you have this white part of the envelope. You have the option to cover this, leaving a space to be able to pull out or not. And then what I'm going to do here is just a little bit of stamp work. To start, I'm going to use the text stamp, and I'm going to use a jet black ink on that, and I'm going to ink up my stamp. Then I will kiss this page. Then I'm going to come along here and just add some detail at the bottom edge, kind of like we did before. And then I'm just going to kiss one more time about up here. Then while we're at it, I'm going to do it again at the top corner. Again, kind of kissing here, maybe a little bit more, and then just adding it right up here. I always like this whole kind of diagonal juxtaposition of pieces. It's a great design element. Next, I'm going to come in here with the postmark. First, I'm going to use a vintage photo for that, but I want to make sure my stamp is straight. So I'm doing that first. So I'm going to come in here on the edge. I'm going to stamp again, and I come in here at this edge. Lastly, this little tiny butterfly is part of the stamp kit, and I'm going to use a lighter black. So this is Hickory Smoke, and again we're going to add the color, stamp it on here, and then add it to our page. That time it got a little light, but you can still see it. And add this up here. Actually, I'm going to do this first ink, not second ink. Yep, that works. And then one more up here, and I think I'm going to do this second ink up here at the top. Just some ideas for adding a little bit of interest to the envelope that is white, but again, if you want to cover it, that is your option. To finish this up, grabbing a piece of adhesive, I'm going to add this adhesive right here on the envelope so that I'm not going to mistakenly cover up the opening. Then I'm going to take this scalloped floral ephemera, just going to pop that right there in the middle of this to finish our envelope. And that's how we're going to embellish that page. Now that our insides are done, we're going to now complete our book by adding embellishments to the top of the book. So there's a pocket included with the kit. Go ahead and get that folded and add adhesive to the 3 sides. Once you have those folds with adhesive, then you're going to kind of layer this over here, sort of in this lower right-hand quadrant where this little faux washi is. So get that in place. Next, we're going to stamp the tag just to give it a little bit of interest, returning back to the text stamp again. I'm using the hickory smoke on this. I don't want this to be dark, so I'm going to kiss my paper first and then just come in right along here with a little bit of text. Now I've grabbed the postmark and I'm going to add the detail of the postmark up here. I'm going to call that good. Now if it's not already assembled, go ahead and assemble the reinforcer to the top of your tag. Thread ribbon into the tag and then grabbing the chipboard arrow, kind of layer that over the top just like that, and as best as you can come in here with your stapler and staple that all in place just like that, and now it's ready to tuck into its pocket. Alright, at this point I'm going to grab the adhesive again and adhere the butterfly to the pocket. Just going to try and get right there in the back of the body, and of course when we pull up this adhesive we can just tuck it back, fold it back over so it doesn't show underneath. So if you need to do that, or use a different type of adhesive, and it's going to come over here and sort of overlap the pocket over here on this left hand side. As a final crowning touch, I'm grabbing this Beautiful Things sticker. My sticker page has come off of its package. I'm going to grab a scrap piece of paper. I'm going to layer that on there. And again, this is because I do not want the sticker sticking to my cover. So I prefer to just go ahead and back it with a piece of cardstock. Just got to trim everything away carefully. This again is sort of a personal preference, but if you don't cover up that sticky part in the back, well then it's just going to stick to your page. And then grabbing a piece of foam adhesive, adhere that just to this non-notched end of the sticker, and then let that hover over the butterfly. And that is how we embellish the cover of our book.